Joshua chapter 3, it's time for them to cross the Jordan River and to prepare to go into the promised land and take the land that God had said he would give to them. Here's the thing you have to understand. God will promise it to you. God will say that he's going to give it to you, but many times you have to go walk out taking possession of what God has given to you or spoken over your life. Chapter 3, verse 1. Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out for Shittim and went out to Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. Basically, the Ark was a picture of the presence of God. When the priests take the presence of God and go before you, you will follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have not been this way before. Basically, the principle or the premise that's being shared with us there is allow God to lead. There's going to be journeys we go on and really wildernesses we walk through or land that we take that we haven't been there before. Allow God to lead. Don't lead God. Allow God to lead. And don't make God have to drag you along either. I love how God said it to the children of Israel. He said, don't get too close. Don't get too far. Follow my lead. But keep a distance of about 2,000 cubits between you and the ark. Do not go near it. Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Prepare your heart, prepare your soul, prepare your mind. God's going to do incredible things. He said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so that they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. God says to Joshua, okay, here's one of the days. There's certain days in your life or certain days in your leadership where God really does something that, you're known for. He said, this is going to be one of those days where you look back and you go, okay, God did something really legit here. God's like, I just want to prepare you right now. I'm going to do something really cool. You know, the Red Sea and all that kind of stuff I did for Moses, the plagues and stuff. You remember that, Joshua? He goes, I'm going to do some cool stuff for you too, basically, is what he's telling Joshua. And he says, tell the priests who carry the Ark of the Covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's water, go and stand in the river. Now, I want to share something with you that I think is cool about this, and there's probably a little bit of reading into it on my part, but I do think that there's something cool about this. God often in our lives it says line upon line, precept upon precept in the scripture, or little is given and then more will be entrusted. So God builds us step after step after step. When they went to the Red Sea, it says that they waited and that God parted the sea with a wind. And that when it was parted, they went on dry land. God says something a little bit different this time. He says, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to part it, but I'm going to do it differently. He says, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river. So can you imagine the faith that the priest has to take? The river's flowing, and they're carrying the ark, and he says, I'm not going to separate it. I'm not going to part it. Go walk in it, and then I'll part it. And really, it's a next step up. Sometimes, what God called you to do 3 years ago, he might stretch you a little more today. Or, a few years from now, he might stretch you a little more than he would right now. And so they step by faith. I mean, I can't imagine being the first one to step in, but they step by faith, and they don't get swept away. Joshua said to the Israelites, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. See, the ark of the covenant of the Lord, the presence of God, will go into the Jordan ahead of you. God says, put me in the river. Step out by faith. Put my presence in the river. Now then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. And as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap. It says as it's flowing through, when they step in, it will stop. It's almost as if God built a supernatural dam to stop the water for a period of time. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is at flood stage all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests, so basically they're saying there were times of the year for the Jordan River where it can be small, and there's times of the river where it can be wide and more powerful. And so basically some people could look back and go, oh, well, the river might not have been very big at that time of year. God is going out of his way to say that the river is at flood stage and to say that this would be the hardest time to cross the river in the natural. It says, yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away. At a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zerethan, while the water flowing down to the sea of the Araba, that is the Dead Sea, you might say in parentheses, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan, and they stood on dry ground, while all Israelites passed by until the whole nation had completely crossed on dry ground. As he was with Moses, he will be with you. Be strong. Be courageous. Chapter 4. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe. He said, take one man from each tribe. This is significant. It's one of the stones of remembrance. We've talked about different things like this in the Bible, how God wants us to look back at what he did from generation to generation. Take one man, and I want them to go in the middle of the Jordan where the priests are standing. And read this, he wants them to take a rock. It's really interesting what God shares with us. Choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe. Tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing. Carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay the night. So set them up so that they can be seen. Take 12 stones from the river and set them up so that they can be seen, stones of remembrance. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God in the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take a stone on his shoulder. So get a big one, basically. Get a big rock. I don't want you to get a little pebble. Get a big rock so that it's noticeable. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of tribes of the Israelites to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. Stones of remembrance. Don't forget what God's done. Don't forget what God did for you a decade ago. Don't forget what God did for you earlier this year. Don't forget what God has done for you. It will give you the faith and the fuel to keep trusting God as you move forward into what God has for you in the future. Verse 8. So the Israelites did as Joshua commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites as the Lord had told Joshua, and they carried them over with them to their camp, where they put them down. Joshua set up the 12 stones that had been in the middle of the Jordan at the spot where the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. Now the priests who carried the ark remained standing in the middle of the Jordan until everything the Lord had commanded Joshua was done by the people, just as Moses had directed Joshua. The people hurried over, and as soon as all of them had crossed, the ark of the Lord and the priests came to the other side while the people watched. The men of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh crossed over, ready for battle, in front of the Israelites, as Moses had directed them. About 40,000 armed for battle crossed over before the Lord to the plains of Jericho for war. That day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they stood in awe of him all the days of his life, just as they had stood in awe of Moses. God had proven that he was with Joshua. Joshua wasn't just talk. Really, God said, I'm going to show them, Joshua, that you walk with me. Verse 15. Then the Lord said to Joshua, command the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant law to come up out of the Jordan. So Joshua commanded the priests, come up out of the Jordan. And the priests came up out of the river carrying the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. No sooner had they set their feet on the dry ground than the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and ran at flood stage as before. On the 10th day of the first month, the people went out from the Jordan and camped at Gilgal on the eastern border of Jericho. And Joshua set up Gilgal the 12 stones they had taken out of the Jordan. He said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their parents, what do these stones mean? This is what you are to tell them. Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan what he had done to the Red Sea, when he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. He did this, verse 24, and we'll close with this, so that all the people of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God. He did it for two reasons. So that the earth can see that the hand of the Lord is powerful, so that the world can see God's power on display, but also so that you will fear the Lord. And that doesn't mean to be afraid of God, but to have an awe of God, to remind you of the awesomeness of God. He said, I did this for two reasons, so that people can see that I'm with you and that my hand's upon you, and so that you never forget who I am in your life. When God moves, I want you to remember this. He does it for two reasons, so that others can see his strength and his might on display, that they might turn to him, and so that you would be reminded of the awe of our God. How awesome is he? God's done some incredible things in my life. He did some incredible things in the Word, and I'm sure He's done incredible things in your life as well, as you look back and you realize where God really did go before you. God really did preserve you or protect you or provide for you or prosper you. God goes before us. He'll never leave us nor forsake us. You can trust that. Be blessed today.